Good Monday morning, OJA. Welcome to this edition of Positively Helpful. This week, we have Director Cartmell that is going to join us and talk a little bit about before he came to OJA, his current role and things that he's doing within OJA, and then maybe some future things for OJA. Director, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I know this is kind of a long time making, and I know we had several conversations months ago about having a podcast. And here we are.
Yeah, our very first one was in the conference room on my iPad, my iPhone. So yeah, we've come a long way. So tell us a little bit about where you came from before OJA, and then just some personal things we'd like to know about you. Who are you?
Yeah, so immediately before coming to OJA, I served as counsel to the Secretary of State and as a senior advisor to the governor. And so what that really meant is I was a senior advisor to the governor on public safety and criminal justice issues. So a lot of my focus over the last 2 to 3 years was on modernizing kind of the way we do things within our adult system. One of the last things that I worked on was kind of a jail study looking at our county jails, what's driving the population, what are our outcomes like there. And so it's been fascinating. We spent the last 4 or 5 years trying to figure out how do we improve outcomes on the adult side.
Right.
And then within like the first week of being at OJA, I was like, we should have just called them. Like they're the ones that have it figured out, like the treatment and prevent. And like, so it's fascinating how many things that the juvenile space was already doing that I think had policymakers taken a step back and looked around as they're trying to find answers. They would have realized I think some of the answers were right in front of us the whole time.
Well, that's good to hear for us.
Yeah.
So tell us about you. Tell us some personal stuff about you.
Yeah.
You're married. You have littles.
Yep. So married to my wife, Jordan. We started dating in law school and have been married for 8 years now. So we're our 8th anniversary in June.
For you to know that.
I know, I had to count last month, right?
Okay.
I have 2 little kids. Our daughter is 4, will be 5 in October. And then our son, Colin, is 15, 16 months. And so he's right at this stage where he just wants to get in everything. Doesn't want to play with anything. He just wants to tear it all up and like see what it is and then move on to the next drawer and throw all that stuff out. So it's a very different experience between the two. Our daughter, we never had to baby proof anything. She didn't want to get in the drawer. She didn't pull anything out. So we never went through that with her. And now with him, we basically have him on a leash all the time, you know.
I'm the youngest out of my brother. My parents always said if I was first, they probably would have not had a second.
Yeah, that's the way Colin is. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm guessing Colin's walking?
Walking, jumping, running, climbing. He is 100% boy and just wants to go as fast as he can. His current thing, and he didn't do this when he crawled, but he likes to fall straight forward and then put his head on the ground and then just, with no regard for what's around, just bulldoze as fast as he can until he hits something, which inevitably is a wall or a door or his sister. And then he'll just get up and redirect himself and just do it again. So he eventually, in the next month or two, when we see him, he'll have like a bald's patch, on the front of his head because he's just, but he's good.
So how has your family adjusted to your move over to OJA?
I think that, my kids don't really know, right? Like you still just go to work and that's all they know. I think for my wife, it's been a little bit of an adjustment just in terms of the things that I bring home from work that are kind of heavy on me. But I was really intentional with my exec team early on saying, look, from 6 to 8 o'clock, that's dinner time, that's bath time, that's bedtime. So if it's on fire, you better be able to figure out a way to put it out. And if you can't, like I don't have a fire hose at home, so like I'm probably not the guy to call either. And so just being respectful and mindful of those couple hours in the evening and couple hours in the morning and making sure that they're set aside for family. And I told my exec team, like, I want them to do that too. Like, we work really hard. We work really long hours. The stuff we're doing is really important, but it can be really emotionally taxing. And so to make sure that they take time and I take time kind of for our families or whatever it is outside of work that kind of refills the cup, so to speak.
I'm so glad that you talked about that because I had heard that about you, that you had that time set aside for your family. And I don't know that we've really ever been used to anything like that. We've always been told we're on call 24 hours a day, and we are. We understand that. But we were talking earlier about having to be able to set those firm boundaries. I mean, even with the parents and the youth that we work with, oftentimes they call us thinking it's a crisis, but it can be handled tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, immediately hear them, address it, but then set something for tomorrow for them to come into the office, which I think by you setting those hours that you're taking for your family, it's great leadership for the rest of us to follow suit and to say, okay, it is okay to have a personal life. It is okay to have a family life. And as long as we're not neglecting our duties, obviously, then it's important to have those.
Yeah. Now, there's times where I respond to emails at 2 or 3 in the morning when one of the kids wakes up and I'm awake. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what happened this evening. But I try to be respectful those times in the morning and the evening.
Absolutely. Well, we will transition into our next segment here in just a little bit. And we want to just talk to you about maybe some of your first thoughts of OJ, what you knew, and then after you came on board, what it actually looked like.
All right, welcome back, OJA. We're here with Director Cartmell, and we're transitioning the conversation now into what were your thoughts about OJA before, and how does it actually look different in reality?
Yeah, so I don't even really remember a lot of my thoughts before, other than I think OJ had a really good reputation of doing really good work. It's not an agency that you read about in the paper. It's not an agency that goes and gets glaring headlines. And so I think it was, from my perspective, I think a lot of other people, it's just an agency full of people who showed up every day, ready to do the work that needed to get done. And I think that's really what I found when I got here was 500 people across the state who really just showed up every day trying to make lives better for the people that we're here to serve.
So what has surprised you the most about OJ now that you're here?
Surprised. I can't think of anything specifically that was necessarily like didn't expect that. There's certainly things that I see that come across my desk that we get involved in that I'm like, I had no idea. I had no idea we ran a charter school. And thinking about what are the opportunities with that long term and how can we maximize that? The innovation, I think, is probably something just from all of our JSU offices across the state, and just how everyone's doing the same work, but doing it differently and doing it in creative ways that really fit their unique needs in their parts of the state.
Right. Yeah, we see that a lot with our workers where resources, especially in some parts, are very minimal. And so they get very creative on what they can bring to their youth and families.
Okay. So what has been the most fun you've had so far?
The most fun, two things. One, we were in Southeast Oklahoma for that district's Christmas holiday party. And I got to be a judge of the desserts.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if
that's
I could
our
find
home district.
If I could find a permanent career path to become a dessert judge, I think that is my calling. But I had a blast down there. The food was great. The people were great. But probably the most fun day for me was our day at the Capitol with some of the kids from the charter school in April. Just seeing them just kind of get to be kids, right? And no one at the Capitol knew they were from our secure facility. They were there as kids from the charter school. And so, just seeing them, they got to do things that your ordinary person walking in the building doesn't get to do. Right. Everything from being on the floor of the Senate, to being recognized in the House, to going literally on the top of the building.
Oh, wow.
I'd worked in that building for a decade, and I'd never been up there until that day. So it was really cool just to see them, the kind of the joy in their face, getting that break from all the treatment they're going through, all the progress they're making, and just kind of get to be kids for a couple hours.
Yeah, that heavy stuff that they have to do every day that just kind of hangs on them. So,
kind of opens them up to a new experience in a new world that they maybe didn't know. So were they able to carry on conversations, and did that surprise you?
It didn't. I was impressed by it, but I wasn't surprised by it. And so we were able to connect them with, some of them got to meet their local senators or the local representatives. Others, we just connected with folks who really cared about them as people and the work that we're doing as an agency. And so it was interesting getting to see them talk to everyone from, the governor of the state of Oklahoma to Representative Alonzo, who is the youngest member of the House. And just wherever they were able to carry on those conversations and talk about what their pathways looked like and talk about what their treatment's been like and really what they want kind of going forward.
So that was your funnest part of OJ. What has been one of the most difficult parts of being with us?
I think just wanting to make change quickly. And it's not just OJA, right? It's government. Like nothing changes as fast as you want it to change.
Right.
And so there's definitely things I'm like, okay, we're still having this issue, or we still don't have this provider, or this contract's still not done. And it's not just frustrating, I think, because it's potentially inefficient. It's just we know that there are people out there who could benefit from having those resources. And the only thing preventing them from getting those resources is just red tape or bureaucracy, or sometimes someone just didn't see an email. And it's like, oh, that came across that day. We need to forward it on. So,
all right. Thank you, Director, for talking with us about your experiences coming on with OJA. Now we're going to shift gears and talk more about what the future looks like.
So welcome back. We're going to now kind of transition into what the future may look like for us as OJA. And I know that some of our audience that's watching may not have ever heard you speak before. So this is their first time to hear from you directly, which I think is super important for our field staff, all of our staff, but our field staff to kind of know what your thoughts are on our direction moving forward. So what are, say, your top 3 things that you would like to see for us as an agency?
So I think and again, I don't have all the answers, right? I don't think any of us do, but I think what I've heard, it seems to be consistently over the last 9 months, things that come up that I think we need to kind of not hit pause, but just take a step back and really evaluate and figure out what does the long-term answer look like in a variety of areas. So one of those would be in our treatment options that we have available for particular high acuity kids. It seems like more and more staff time, whether it's field staff or state office staff, gets bogged down with just the 2 or 3 really high acuity complex needs kids in their district, which it's good that we're taking the time and really figuring out the good treatment plans for those kids. The problem is a lot of times, at least when they come to my desk, good treatment doesn't exist. Right. And not just exist in Oklahoma, but really across the country. And so trying to figure out how can we as an agency be a leader, not necessarily to run treatment programs, but to speak into the build out of programs that really meet the kids and the families where they are and kind of in their journey in treatment. It seems to be that we spend a lot of time on the same 2 or 3 types of kids with the same 2 or 3 types of issues and backgrounds.
Right. So you're envisioning not necessarily us putting a program in like Kojak or one of our group homes, but maybe partnering with another provider that we could really help them see this is our high level need that our kids have. And maybe they can put something together for us. Yeah,
I mean, I think if we can't get a partner to do it, then we may be calling Carol and saying, "Hey, Carol, you've got some cottage space, and we're gonna rethink and reuse that space." But I think in my mind, it would be trying to find a provider in the private sector that we can go to and say, "Hey, we have a growing number of children who present to us with low level IQs, low functioning IQs, but more and more higher level of offenses."
Right.
And right now, there is nowhere literally in the country where that will treat some of these children. Right. And we know that the options that we have available may make some people feel good to send them to a group home for 5 or 6 months or send them to Kojak. But everyone knows if they took a step back that that's not the right answer for the kid. Right. I think children that have autism, kind of the same thing. There's nowhere where we can really find good treatment providers that want to take and want to treat those children.
And that's key. Want to.
Yeah.
I mean, our providers will, but to have that person that says, yes, this is our niche. This is what we are experts in, and that's the kid. Send us that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I definitely think our field staff really struggle with when that kid lands on their caseload, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with this kid? And then as a worker, I think we oftentimes would take that as a fail on us if we couldn't find that right treatment for them. So to hear that you've seen it and you're on board with trying to find something is very encouraging for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple kids that I can think of offhand where I know Shell and her team have called over 20 providers across the country.
Yes.
And every time she comes back to me and says, well, we can't we couldn't, they said no, or here's why I got screened out, or whatever. I said, okay, call 20 more. Like
Right.
call the next person, because I think we're one phone call away from having that provider identified, or calling a provider that says, hey, we don't do that today, but we could build that out.
Right.
So let's talk through what that would look like. Yeah, because I don't want to get in a position to what you said earlier, where we're now turning Kojak into a treatment facility for kids that really need inpatient treatment.
Absolutely.
And that sort of setting.
Absolutely. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
What's a couple of more?
So it seems to be reentry comes up a lot, whether I'm talking with folks in the court system, our JSU staff, state office staff, Kojak. It seems to be that everyone is kind of doing parts of it, but we don't have one centralized agency person that says, okay, I control or I influence or I'm responsible, really responsibility, ownership of what reentry looks like for kids coming out of group homes, kids coming out of Kojak, and really even kids in the community that we're pulling out from. So if you go online, I've been told it should be posted now. We're hiring our first director of reentry services for the agency to really at a high level look at how are we doing it. First of all, what are we supposed to be doing?
Right.
Are we doing that or not? And what are we not doing that we should be? And what are we should be doing? What are we doing that just isn't working? With the long-term goal being that no matter whether you're a kid leaving a group home in Salisaw, or you're at Kojak, or you're in the community in Duncan, the reentry services that we have for you are going to be consistent across the board. And I think the expectations really on us as an agency, so our staff know, okay, this is what's expected, and this is who's supposed to be doing
That's
it.
who's responsible.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think
We talked about this before. It's like, oh, I thought you were doing it. Oh, I thought they were doing it. Not knowing who's responsible has sometimes let our kids fall through, and then they come back to the community, and it's like, who's doing what now?
Yeah.
And I think that as there's not clarity even among us, then there's not clarity with the youth. So when we're taking Hope class to them and we're talking to them about their community and what resources they have and what that continuum of care plan is, they can't verbalize what that is. And so we want to get to a place where they feel confident and comfortable enough with us, because it doesn't mean they don't have one. Maybe they just are not confident with sharing it.
Right.
And so we want to be able to look at all of those things so that they can tell us, be able to share, this is what I'm doing, and this is what it's going to look like in some of the new pathways I'm taking.
And like you said, to have the confidence to be able to know whenever they come back into their community, this is who they need to contact. This is who's in charge of that. I mean, just to have it laid out for them, I think will be huge for our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we teach Hope at New Worker, we do a connect the dot exercise. And part of the room gets a picture that has just dots. And part of the room gets a picture that has dots with numbers. Right? And the whole exercise is beginning to think, well, if you have the numbers, if all of it's outlined for you, it's easier to get from point A to point B.
Yeah. And I think using that example, like we've got the dots and we've got the numbers. We just need somebody that oversees making sure everyone's putting them together in the proper order.
Yeah. Put them on the same page.
Yeah.
So I think that was two.
Yeah.
Two things. We got acuity and then reentry.
So those high needs kids that we know need kind of the inpatient therapy, the inpatient treatment that we just don't have right now. More concerted effort, concentrated effort around reentry. And then I think the last thing, if I could just have a magic wand and say,
for the day. Yes.
I think that I would love to just completely break down any silo, right? Because when I first started, people were like, oh, you work at state office. I was like, I work in the Oklahoma City office. Yeah. Like, no, but
that's state office.
You're a state office employee.
Right,
like, I'm an OJA employee. What do you mean?
Yes.
And so it took me a long time to understand that. And so I want a culture that exists where it doesn't matter what district you're in, whether you're at state office or Kojak, that we're all part of the same team. We're all rowing in the same direction. And that if you live in Lawton and you want to go to Miami and work up there, that it's just a seamless transition. That when you come to Oklahoma City, you feel just as welcome here as you do in your local office in Antlers. And I think that the agency has come a long way towards that. Yeah. But I would love to just expedite that as quickly as we can. And I know it's not going to change overnight. But I think that's why doing things like getting out to the district meetings is helpful, and talking with staff and understanding, okay, what are the issues in Southwest Oklahoma? What's interesting is I've been to the different districts. some of the same themes come up about reentry and these high needs kids, but there are also some very particular needs and concerns of the different districts that I only hear about in one or two places. I don't hear about all across the board. So,
and I think that as we begin to or continue to break down those barriers, we have this restored belief that we're all in this together, right? And that I'm not the only one carrying the future of youth and families I'm working with, that I'm a piece of that puzzle, but that we're all doing the same work everywhere for all the youth and families.
And it's not all on the one JSU worker that's assigned to that one case to be able to define whether it's successful or not, to be able to say we as a team were able to do that. I know it's very nice to be able to call Shell and at the state office and say, this is what's going on, or, to be able to just reach out to anybody else on the team and say, hey, my family needs help with this. Right. Where can I go?
Right. So it'd be a team approach.
That's right. You don't feel like you're by yourself.
Right. Right. So how would you define success as a director? What would that look like?
So success for me or success for the agency?
Let's start with you and then let's go to the agency.
I think for me, when I get to the end of the day, I want to be able to look back and say, did I make things better? Right? Like, and even if it's a small thing, did things get better for whatever I was working on today? And I think if you put together 5 of those, well, then you're going to have a successful week, and then you're going to have a successful month, and then you're going to have a successful year. And so it's not just, okay, did you make so many phone calls, or did you have so many intakes, or did I respond to so many providers? But it's in whatever I was doing today, did I make things better? Did I push the ball down the field? Because I think incremental success for us over time will lead to huge success for the youth and the family that we serve. But I think if we would have said 15 years ago, we're going to be trauma informed today, well, it wasn't going to happen overnight.
Right,
it took days and weeks and months and years of staff, of folks like you all, pushing that boulder, sometimes probably up the hill. And now we're here, right? I think I've told you both this. When I started, if I would have said, I don't really believe that this trauma-informed care thing makes sense, and I'm not a fan of this hope stuff. Well, it wasn't an option, whether it just, this is what we do. We're OJA, we're trauma-informed, and we're hope-centered. And so I think kind of getting to that point, whatever it is, it's just those daily small wins of just moving things forward that get to where you're 15 years down the road. There's a new director with everyone's like, who's this guy? And I'm just like, okay, what's the Kool-Aid? Let me drink it.
Yes. Well, and we're glad you drank it, because it was like, when you first came on, the fear I think that most of us had was, are we fixing to do another major shift? Which direction are we going to go? Are we going to be law enforcement minded again? Are we going to be hope centered, treatment minded? Where are we going to go? So we're very glad you drank the Kool-Aid.
Well, and I think we're at a really, really cool place to be, whether you're a brand new JSU worker and just started 2 weeks ago, whether you've been here forever, like some of our state office folks that I love to death, or you're somewhere in between. I think we have an opportunity, because of the work that's been done over the last 10 to 15 years, to get us to this place to really take a step back and say, what does the next 15 years look like?
Right.
Like where are we missing the mark, or where are we hitting the mark, but could make it exponentially better, which is kind of a cool place to be.
But I think too, what you said about pushing the boulder down the field, there's a huge difference in pushing the boulder and kicking the can, right? Yeah. I mean, we are pushing the boulder and we're moving forward, and we're trying to do better. And instead of kicking the can and we're just going to hopefully deal with that later.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is hard, that we have to address things, and we have to make some changes to be able to do that, to be able to see overall big picture and to move that boulder. There has to be changes. So with that, what do you see as right now one of our biggest strengths?
So I think our biggest strength are our people.
I agree.
Like
I agree.
It's not a program. It's not a director. It is the people in the field every day doing the hard work. And again, making that next right decision, moving that ball a little bit further down the field. Because you could have all of the structure in place or the policy in place, but if you don't have the people to execute it, it doesn't matter, right? And so I think our people, all the way from, again, brand new JSU worker to career state office staff are what make OJA what it is.
So, greatest strength, what do you see with us now as one of maybe our weaknesses that you, instead of kicking the can, you want to push the boulder and make some changes?
Yeah, I think, and I don't even think it's necessarily a weakness, but I think whenever I came in and I was like, okay, guys, we've come to this point where we've been on this trauma-informed care, hope-centered initiative belief for years now. Like, what is next? People are like, what do you mean what's next? Like, you tell us what's next. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not, again, like, I'm not the answer guy. Like, we need to sit around and collaborate with each other and figure out what do we want and what does that look like? And so I think it's not necessarily a weakness, but I think for whatever reason, I want people in this agency to be creative and to innovate more and to look at something and say, hey, we have a charter school in Tecumseh, and we know this part of the state doesn't do a very good job with education, particularly on the kids that are coming out of our system.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How can we leverage that and maximize it?
Yeah.
Right? Or we've got a really good provider in this part of the state that if we could just pick that up and duplicate it somewhere else and to have I want our staff to feel like they can really have the ability to have those times to think big and think creative and go solve problems that we know either exist or that are coming. Right. Because I don't know what those things are. I'm not in the field every day. I don't see them. All I can fix and work on are the things that I hear about. But I know we've got staff every day that sit back and go, if we could just change that.
Right.
If we could just change that.
Right.
And so just encouraging.
So they had them on for the day.
Yeah,
right?
so just encouraging our staff to reimagine what OJA looks like.
Yeah. What I have learned about you just in the short time that we've spent visiting is you like to challenge people to think instead of saying, no, that can't happen. You don't like that answer.
Yeah.
No, that can't happen. You really want people to bring some things to the table that may not have ever been an option before and may not still be an option. Yeah. But you want to hear it. I mean, let's put it out on the table and then work to see if we can figure out the best answer here. So. Yeah,
there's a podcast that I was listening to about a year ago this time, and the question that they were talking through is kind of how do you achieve impossible goals?
Right.
And you change it from it's impossible because to it's impossible unless. Right. Let's say OJA wanted to build our own inpatient treatment facility. We don't. Legislators, whoever's listening.
Yeah.
But let's say that we did, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, that's impossible. Well, it's impossible unless we had $40 million. Right. It's impossible unless we had 50 well-trained, certified, licensed staff to do it. So I think just shifting that mindset from it's impossible because to it's impossible unless we do X, Y, and Z. And that's where I've challenged my staff to really rethink. Maybe the answer is no, but it's no unless what. And I think the first person on staff that really on the team that got to experience that was Shell. As she's working through the kind of deployment of FFT across the state, I was like, okay, so what's our goal? She's like, all 77 counties.
We're close.
Okay, so how, like into May, and when are we getting there? She was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, well, can we get there by the end of the year? And she's like, probably not. And I was like, okay, so we can get back there by like October? And she's like, even less of a chance. I was like, okay, unless what? Like, don't just tell me it's impossible. Tell me it's impossible unless what happens. Just, well, these providers would have to do this, and we have to connect them to this, and there's licensing. I was like, okay, so we got a plan now.
Right.
It may not work, but we have a plan. And I'm not going to take her thunder, but we're going to get there, I think, a lot sooner. Not because of me, but I think because her mindset shifted from, yeah, that's going to be impossible to do, to here are the 10 things that are actionable that we can do to get there at a much earlier time.
Right. So for that, obviously we need ideas. Mm-hmm. And I know at New Worker, you had said, if you have ideas, let's hear them.
Yeah.
So with that, what would be the best way for JSU staff to contact you?
Yeah, so the easiest way would be just to email me and copy Audrey, because Audrey makes sure that I actually see everything that's in my email inbox. I do my best to keep up with it. If you copy Audrey, Audrey will print it off and make sure that I actually read it and see it and respond to it. Something else that we've talked about this morning is on the OJA intranet, there's places where you can report fraud and waste, and you can see the dashboards and all of that. I kind of just want to create like a thoughts box. Just create a thoughts, and you just send in. and we may be opening Pandora's box, and it may be a whole lot of complaints. I don't know, but just trying to, again, cut down that barrier on people in the staff feeling that they can actually communicate with and speak into what's happening in state office is important. And when I'm at the district meetings, I'm going to typically be on there for about 15 minutes.
Right.
And I've usually got about 2 minutes worth of things to say. That means the other 13 minutes needs to be filled up with really their thoughts and comments and concerns and what would they like to see. Sometimes it's met with crickets, and other times you can tell like they've wanted to tell me something for a while now, and here we go.
You open the door, and here it comes.
But if it's 13 minutes of crickets, it's 13 minutes of crickets. But generally, it seems like once people understand that, okay, he really does just want to listen and know. They've been really, really good, helpful discussions.
I think even in those cricket moments, people have thoughts and opinions and goals, but get caught off guard.
Yeah.
It's like, I had so many things, but I can't think of one of them right now because I've been put on the spot. Right. So those opportunities even for them to share.
And the think box would be awesome because, when the idea comes to you, you can just put it in.
Yeah.
So you don't have to wait until you get around to a district meeting to be able to say it.
Yeah, but I think it's not just as simple as having the thought box option. Right? There's also needs to be something in place where it's okay. Once a month, once a quarter, the exec team is going to sit down.
Right.
And we're going to go through all of them.
Right.
And actually act on them and respond to them and let staff know that you're not just shouting into this dark hole. Otherwise, they can just go outside and, yell at the wind. And some people probably feel like when they talk to the director, it's as effective as yelling at the wind. I want it to be something meaningful where if they're going to take their time to really say, hey, here's a chance where we can do better. Yeah. Even if it's not something that we would ever do, they need to know that that's valued, that's appreciated, and get some sort of a response back from us. Yeah.
I agree. All right. So I think next we're going to transition and just try to find some more information out about you. So we're going to do just a real quick question and answer and see your responses.
All right. And we're back with the director. Director, we are going to do a fun segment here. Fun
segment.
Where we are going to rapid fire questions. And you just give us the answer that pops into your mind about you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
No.
All right.
Well, here we go.
Ready or not? Here we go. All right. Chocolate or vanilla?
Cake or ice cream?
Rapid fire, director.
That's my first thought.
Is it different?
Yeah.
Oh, go with ice cream.
Vanilla with sprinkles. That's what my daughter likes. If it's cake, it's chocolate because that's what my mom makes.
Okay. Good. Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Oh my gosh. End of conversation. Just kidding.
Okay, we're done.
Early bird or night owl?
Not really consistently either. Just because with two small kids, it's kind of what do they feel like?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, sometimes night owl.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah. Pirate or astronaut?
Pirate. I'm afraid of heights.
Pirate.
Books or TV?
Books, but real books, not like a tablet. I need a book that I can write in.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. People
like smells kind of funny. And,
People say, "I'll let you borrow that book." I'm like,
Yeah.
Right.
Singing or dancing?
Singing. I'm not going to sing.
Okay. Summer or winter?
I love summer.
Oh.
But I just had this conversation on Sunday with my brothers that were in town. Would you rather have permanent summer or permanent winter?
Oh.
And I think in that case, I'd probably pick winter. But in terms of just the season, summer.
Football or baseball?
Football.
OU or OSU?
There's only one.
That's right. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
A movie that makes you laugh?
Ooh. Just watch Moana on Saturday night. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. A movie that makes you cry?
I don't know. If it's a sad movie, I won't watch it. And I'm gonna elaborate on that. So my wife and I are dating. The Patriot, Mel Gibson's one, is still one of my favorite movies. It is sad at parts. Mm-hmm. I know that my wife's never seen it, and so one of the scenes where one of his sons gets killed, I get up and leave the room because I don't want to watch it. I know it's happening, and I come back. She was bawling and furious at me because she knew that I had gotten up intentionally to leave the room all alone at the set. But I was like, I don't want to watch this part. I know it's like I'm going to get another, whatever. I was like, I'm not.
Thanks.
I try not to watch sad movies.
Yep, me Me too. So what's your favorite song right now?
I don't know that I have a favorite song.
Oh, favorite genre?
I like country music.
Really?
Yeah.
Surprised.
Whoa, hold on, whoa.
I'm not. I'm not.
Just
Like
surprised.
classic country, 90s country. I don't like new country.
Oh,
Because it's not country.
Florida Georgia Line.
That's not real country.
They broke up.
Did they break
They
up?
broke up.
Well, I'm sure all the pop circles know about it.
Yeah.
Dream job.
I think it'd be awesome to be like a professional bass fisher.
Okay.
I'm not good at fishing. I'm terrible at fishing. But just like if that was your job every day, like I'm just going to go hang out on a boat.
I could see where you wouldn't, because you're like, let's go. Let's
Yeah,
do things.
but it would just be nice and peaceful
Yeah.
and tranquil.
Yeah.
I've seen all the modern technology though, so I would have to have all that. It would.
Like
I would
the
take
sonar.
all of it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd just
Yeah,
be like,
take
yeah,
all
there's
the
one. I'm
fun
getting that one.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Toughest sport you ever played?
So growing up, I played ice hockey. So it's probably ice hockey. The hardest thing I've ever done was I went to a bar 3 class with my wife,
Uh-huh.
and that about killed me. I'll never go back.
So no,
What?
thank you.
What is it?
I don't even know how to explain it. It's tough. Look at just
Google it.
Google it.
Yeah.
Google it.
Okay.
Yeah, look it up on the Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
Favorite holiday.
4th of July.
Back. Worst habit.
About my nails.
Happiest memory.
My wedding day.
Lucky number.
7.
First pet.
Not really my first pet. The first pet I remember, we had a dog named Ty,
Right or left-handed?
left-handed.
Favorite quote.
Do good.
Work or play?
Both.
Driving or flying.
Love road trips. I don't like flying.
Really? What is your go-to snack?
Dots pretzels.
Greatest strength.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's not an answer.
I work a lot on my patience with my kids.
Okay.
Okay.
So maybe patience.
Okay.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Biggest pet peeve.
The answer no.
Cautious or risk taker?
Cautious risk taker.
Cautious risk taker.
Okay.
These are my answers.
They
we'll give it to
Okay.
you.
We'll ask you next.
Someone you admire.
My parents.
Well, thank you for being willing to share and engage in that fun activity. And we're going to wrap up next.
Director, thank you so much for joining us and just visiting with us about your vision for OJA and your time, your 9 months that you have spent with us here. Is there anything that you would like our JSU staff to know that we weren't able to cover?
Yeah, I think feels like we've covered a lot. My very first week, I was at one of the new worker trainings or new worker academies. And I said something then, and it rings even more true today. And it's the magic happens in the field. The magic happens in those moments where they're talking to a kid or talking to the family or in court. And just don't lose sight of the fact that they have real opportunity to make real change for our state. And that's a really cool thing. I hope they know they're supported by me and the exec team at state office. And again, if there are things that we can support them better or things that we can do to improve, I want them to reach out, because we're only going to be as good as the information that we have, and the information we need is going to come from the field staff.
So is there anything that we have talked about that you would like to elaborate on before we close out or clarify?
I don't think so, but if I go back and watch it, I may change my mind.
So thank you again so much for joining us. We appreciate you sitting in the chair, in the hot seat with us. That will do it for us this week. I think the director said it best. Go do good.